Yo, what up guys, Corey Sandman Sandhagen here. Today we're gonna go over Ilia versus Charles. Mostly just how Ilia's style works and then how he did a super good job scouting Charles, making sure that he was using the proper techniques, and then also just waiting for Charles to do his kind of movement that he does time and time again. Video is gonna be sponsored by Aries. Make sure that you guys are checking out the OnlyFans for all the instructionals, not pictures of my balls, unfortunately, sorry. Peace, I love you guys, let's crack into the video. All right, cool guys. The first thing that we'll talk about, because I'm sure all of you guys are interested in, is it like Ilia being a genetic freak that makes him hit hard, or is it his actual technique piece? And I would say that's kind of a little bit of both. Like everyone has different bone densities and stuff like that really matters for fighting, but what really matters is, or not really matters, but a lot of what matters in the way that you're gonna be able to create leverage when you're punching depends on how you're kind of built and what you do naturally really well. So for example, a lot of longer guys like me, they'll try to make momentum happen because how we're built is like big slingshots and big whips. That's like an okay way to go about creating power. The problem is that it's really hard to combo punch when you're built really long and you're throwing things like slingshots. Like for example, maybe like a right hand goes like this, like you see this a lot from big tall guys. When they jab, it's kind of out and down like a whipping motion, instead of, if I'm more compact, using a lot more of my core and making leverage from rooting myself into the floor and not flinging my momentum. When I root myself to the floor, I don't create whips. I create strong movements like I'm throwing something really heavy through the air. Like if I was gonna throw something heavy and I'm not rooted to the floor, I would need to lift myself up off the floor. When I'm rooted on the floor, I use my core and I stop myself, which is more or less how Ilia throws his punches, okay? But that works well with this build. He's kind of like a shorter, stockier, dense guy. Not quite a short king, maybe he falls into that category, I'm not sure. But he stands real bladed. He has this motion where I've talked about a number of times where he's kind of loaded on the back foot a lot and he can generate a ton of power with his right hand when he has his weight set back. Think like a javelin thrower or someone that's gonna launch something. They don't put their foot forward and try to throw it like this, that looks stupid. You put your weight on the back and you launch like this, okay? So that's what gives him a lot of power on the right side. On the left side, he does this thing where you rotate from this left side. So he's not all heavy only on the back leg. He's heavy on the front leg sometimes too, but that's usually when he's throwing his lead hand, because I can get a ton of power when I start to swivel around this front leg, okay? I can't get power on my backhand when I'm swiveling around my front leg because I'm up off of it. I have no drive. But when I swivel on the front, I have a ton of ability to make power in these types of movements. Like if you're in strength and conditioning world, it's like these types of shits where you're doing stuff like this, or like kettlebell swings are kind of the same idea. This one just kind of has a rotation with it. That's how you get power on your lead hand, is by being heavy and rotating in my hip there. Where on the back side, I get a ton of power by pushing up off the floor. There's still a rotation piece to it, but I'm not getting heavy on my front. I'm way heavier on my back. So he'll throw, boom, put his weight heavy here, be able to launch here, back again, heavy on the right hand, heavy on the left hand, okay? So that's how he gets a lot of his power. His approach to the fight was super smart. He used his jab a lot. Charles does move forward quite a bit. Ilia did a really good job not moving backwards. Every time he threw his jab, it was either here and then kind of off to the side where he would circle left. He never really got caught too much just backing up like this, which he did a really awesome job with, okay? The jab he was throwing was super clean, really fundamental too. It wasn't like a kind of a reachy jab. It was a jab where he would kind of stomp this front leg at the same time that he lands, boom, and have himself move right back. That's because he has his weight again on his back foot. So when I drive and push, boom, I stop myself here, push myself back so that I can maintain range. And he did a really good job of moving, boom, back into a stance, driving off the back foot, stopping himself here, and then coming back into his stance. So that's more or less how Ilia's punches kind of work, okay? Charles did a good job in the beginning of this fight. Like, he landed a gnarly elbow. Hopefully we'll be able to show it on YouTube, but Ilia went to throw a right hand or something, and Charles stepped in and threw like a gnarly right elbow, which I knew Charles was probably going to be thinking in terms of elbows, because guys that are really closed off like this and underneath you, which just means if my head is here and their heads are here, it's really hard to like generate enough power and feel like you could hit them because your chin's way up in the air. But you can definitely like elbow them in that area. So that was a good one on Charles. Definitely could have finished the fight with this right elbow here, but Ilia obviously has a much better chin than you know, that elbow was able to do. So that was awesome on Charles' part. Hopefully we can get that part in the video, because that was nasty and gnarly. All it is just this idea of stepping in, throwing your right hand, moving your head a little bit. But if the space closes really quick, instead of throwing a punch, if you're taller and it's hard to get underneath people, elbowing is a really good idea, okay? The knockout happened by Charles doing these kind of movements that he does. He keeps his hands really close to his face, like almost like kind of awkward. I mean, it looks really good for him, like he's really good at moving that way. But when he moves, he has this kind of like dipping type of movement where he'll be really narrow in his stance so that he can move and have this good rock. And then when he gets ready to set, he'll step this front leg really big, especially when he's going to go on his throw his lead hand. He makes himself big and powerful by taking that step. That's a good idea to do if you are a little bit longer. I mean, here I can't generate a ton of power, okay? But if I just step this foot a little bit longer, now I can do those movements like I was talking about, where I can really rotate over this hip, or I can really launch this backhand and stuff like that. So Charles does that a lot, but Ilia was able to read it. It's like a really noticeable thing that Charles does that makes him look really unique. I'll show it to you guys. So he'll kind of have this little bounce here, boom, get narrow. When he goes to get, try to make himself powerful and athletic, he'll step this foot way long so that he's in this stance, and then he'll bail on this. The problem is with Charles is that he'll oftentimes from here do like a loading type of motion, which you've all seen, and he throws his hook usually really tight. It's never like one of these. So for example, if I'm gonna load big, like you see this a lot, Charles never does that. He keeps his hand really close to him, so when he does throw his hook, it'll be like this. He didn't get to do it a ton in the last fight, but he does do that in a lot of his fights. But this time when he sunk in, he was loaded and this hand was way down, which obviously got him hit really hard. That's like something, if I was scouting Charles, I would definitely say like, hey, he does that a lot. Like when he goes to roll into shots, a lot of the times his hands will kind of drop a little bit, and it's not a ton, but just right here. And although his punches aren't crazy wide, so it looks hard to capitalize on his initial drop, his hands come here a lot. So that's kind of what got him hit. Ilia did a good job capitalizing on that big mistake, but it was totally Charles just being here, sinking in, and just having this hand down and getting hit while he was doing that, which is good scouting on Ilia's part. So that's pretty much it, guys. Yeah, we're not going to go over the grappler and exchange. We'll leave it there because, yeah, that was the thing that ended the fight. Peace. I love you guys. Subscribe. Later.